Hello, my friends. Welcome into the summer transfer window episode. I got me a little cup of apple cider in my charity water mug. You probably want to put on a kettle if you're a tea fan. You know, get a little drink ready, hit the pause button, go do what you need to do. I'm anticipating this being a slightly long episode. Why is that, Gray Hair Gaming? Well, we've sacked off 12 staff members. We've had 7 players leave on transfers or free. We've loaned out 2 brothers to the same club, and we brought in a total of 8 new players into the team. We've trialed what feels like half of the universe, but it's worked out because we've signed like 4 or 5 players from trialists. Also, we beat Ajax in the Dutch Super Cup. You heard that correctly. Do not adjust your video receiving unit. We beat Ajax in the Dutch Super Cup, which I don't really care about, but it's nice to have another trophy in the cabinet. And these are the teams that we could face in the Europa League playoff. However, it also says the best 0 losers qualify for the Euro Cup too, so the Europa Conference League. So I'm still not convinced we're totally in it if we lose. Let's roll that intro. Before we get started into all of the transfer business, my friends, 2 new patrons to thank. We are on 53 patrons. My goal for the end of the month is 60, and it seems achievable, which it didn't just a week ago. I'm sorry if I butchered this. I've messaged this person to see if this is how you pronounce it and haven't heard back yet, so I'm just going to roll with it. Just let me know if it's wrong. Romanian, new patron at the 2nd tier. Thank you for joining. And Andrew Tomes, I hope it's Tomes, who's been in the comments a lot. Thank you for your support. It really means a lot. Also, I will talk at the end of this episode about YouTube memberships, which is a thing that's like Patreon but tied to YouTube. But I'll talk about that at the end of this episode. So if that's something that you're interested in, stay tuned. All right, my friends, instead of clicking all around on FM, I'm going to just drop some screenshots all over the place above my head. I don't know why I did it just then, because those aren't going to show up just yet. Anyway, let's go over the pretty significant staff overhaul and really why I did it. I mean, the reason why is, I think, why do you sign new staff anytime, right? It's to improve the squad. But I want to walk you through the attribute changes, which may be too much minutia, but that's why I'm only going to reduce it down to the attributes for each role, if that makes sense. So, first off, we signed a new head of youth development. I feel kind of bad because our former head of youth development, Frans Dannen, sure, was an ADO Den Haag player from 1985 to 1992, but we needed to improve. So we've signed and renamed the new head of youth development because it's like I think it's a new gen in FM. It doesn't have a history. So we've renamed him after one of my patrons, Marcus From. You could see that he's got 4 less in working with youngsters, which sounds bad for a head of youth development, but I thought the increase in the judging player ability and player potential ability was definitely worth it. Plus, I love a determined personality, which Marcus has. Likewise, we've sacked our head performance analyst. I'm kind of starting at the top of each of the departments and working my way down. So we've sacked our head performance analyst and significantly, I think, upgraded to another patron of mine, because again, this one doesn't have a history, John Platt. Thanks for your support, John. Look at that difference in analyzing data. The only problem is he prefers a 5-3-2 wingback, but for a performance analyst, I thought one, I don't know how much importance that really has, and 2, I thought the increase in the analyzing data was so worth it, not to mention the tactical knowledge. So there you go. Next up, we've sacked our chief scout, which I don't remember I ever showed you, is Taco van de Velde. He was the technical director for Saudi Arabia, Australia, for like their national teams, became a coach for the UAE national team, and then joined us as a scout and then chief scout, which I thought was really, really interesting. I just think this chief scout's a lot better if you just look at the attribute changes. So we've promoted from within, so that feels good. You know, this is a guy that came to us last season, and then, you know, honestly, when I signed him, I was like, wow, he's better than our chief scout. So let's see what happens there. So that's what we've done there. Speaking of scouts, we sacked one that we had and signed a replacement. Like, does the name Hans Schreiber ring a bell? This is the history. And backfilled the promoted scout with Johan Elmander. This is his history. Some of these names may ring bells to you that they don't for me because they're, they played in the Netherlands or elsewhere in Europe before I was a football fan. From a physio standpoint, we got rid of 2 of our physios. One had a 10 and one had an 8 in physiotherapy. So combined, they had less physiotherapy attribute than the one we just signed with a 20. Significant upgrade. Remember at the beginning of the save when we had 8 coaches and only 6 were allowed? Like we inherited 8 coaches of the 6 allowed, which I thought was really, really weird. Well, we've sacked off 3 of them. 2 of them I felt bad because they're former ADO Den Haag players, but and really of those, Rick Houdendorp is one I'll try to get back. He, of course, doesn't really want to talk to us right now because we just let him walk at the end of it. We didn't sack them. We just didn't renew their contracts. I guess for all of these that I've said sacked off, I didn't go in and fire them or mutual termination. I just didn't renew their contracts. And most of Rick's attributes are a big meh. However, his attacking training is pure class. And when I looked at the stats for last season, we were actually pretty decent in not conceding, but I think we scored 40 and conceded 39. And 39 is a good number for conceding, or decent number, I should say. 40 is pretty poor. So we need to score more, and I just sacked off, or didn't renew the contract of, our best attacking coach. So we'll try to get him back, but he doesn't really want to talk right now. Also, one of the coaches we didn't renew the contract of, now shows, because I was looking to see, I was pulling up all their attributes, right? So I can include them all up here. And it shows he has no history. It was like he was never at the club. He's like a ghost coach. It's very, very weird. Is it because he was over the limit? I don't know. It's very odd. Maybe it's a bug. I'll report it. Anyways, we signed Roy Mackay, I don't know, that some of you may know from the likes of Bayern Munich or Feyenoord. Across all coaching attributes, I think you can see he's an upgrade over everyone except for Rick's attacking, which was a 17. And lastly, back for his 3rd stint at the club is Max de Jong as our new goalkeeping coach. He played for ADO Den Haag, in case you were curious, from 94 to 99. That was stint number 1. Was a goalkeeping coach for just a year, from 2011 to 2012. And is now back on a 4-year deal for us. Pretty nice improvement in the coaching attributes there. The rest of the changes are in young ADO and for our under 19s. Nothing too crazy, just, upgrades of 1 or 2 on most attributes for things like the assistant manager and a fitness coach and stuff like that. Now, I'm going to have some of my apple cider here, and then we'll move into Football Manager and show you the player transfers. All right, before we hop into FM, here's some of the raw numbers for you about our player transfers. We've had 7 players go out for a total of 4,065,000 euros, and in doing so, saving ourselves 15,500 in wages off of our books because they left, right? Considering we're currently spending 107,000, that's not an insignificant amount of wage reduction nor transfer income coming in, right? That's actually kind of massive. Just on the wages is massive, right? And the 4 million plus that we brought in has boosted our transfer budget up to over 7 million. It was actually a little bit higher, but we've because we had the extra, we put some of that into our scouting budget. So now we have worldwide scouting rather than just European scouting. So it was taking forever to scout players in Argentina and Brazil. It's we'd have to literally fly somebody for 2 weeks and then come back and they're like, hey, I found out one of his attributes. And you're like, really? So now we've gone worldwide with it, baby. Let's go. I'm also going to see if we can get some additional scouts in because right now we've got 4 with 1 about to sign to get us back to 5 plus our chief scout. But my scouting priority list is over 150 long because I was like, oh, that person looks interesting, yay! But I've been pretty bad at just sure, and we're not getting anywhere with anybody really. Anyway, those are the outs. The new players we brought in have only cost us 350,000 euros in transfer fees with one of them having one that could raise it up to 380,000 over a certain number of appearances, etc. But we've added 44,050 euros to the wage budget. But here's how I look at that. If you subtract the 15 grand we reduced our wages by the players going out from the 44 grand we've increased it by, it adds up to about, over the entire year, 1,485,000 euros in extra wages, which is a lot. However, right, look at our net transfer spend as of right now is 3.6 million in our favor, right? So we had 4 million plus go out, and we spent 350 rising to 380. So if we took that transfer budget and applied it to the wage budget, we could afford those new wages for 2 whole years and have a little bit left over just from the transfers that we've made. I think that's really good business. But what do you think, right? Like, I think, we are kind of the refinery. We're that, you're available on a free transfer, come on down, we'll use you for a year or two, and we'll sell you on. That's kind of where we're at as a club. But when we can, we'll go splash a little bit of cash on some of those good prospects. So let's go take a look at them right now. Starting with the outs, my friends. And really, I had a bit of a panic attack. If you were in the Discord, you saw it, because the season's supposed to end on June 6th, which then if you go look at next season, because it shows you the rule changes and all that kind of stuff coming in for the next season, starts on June 6th. Right? You relegate the teams, you promote the teams. None of that happened. We got all the way into preseason, like a week and a half or 2 into preseason, and then on July 7th, it randomly was like, okay, here's the new season. I'm like, that is a little concerning. Why does it say June 6th? Shouldn't it say July 6th? Maybe that's a typo, maybe that's a bug, but I thought for a minute that the save was bugged, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. If this happens to my main save again, I'm going to throw my digital copy of Football Manager out the window. Anyway, Bilal has gone for 5 whole grand to RKC. That's not really where we're saving the money. He could have made it, but his concentration being so poor, bravery being pretty poor, determination pretty poor. I was like, he's already 23 going on 24. He was in our B team all of last season. I tried to sell him earlier. Nobody wanted him. So I thought 5 grand was worth it, because we did get like a sell-on clause with almost all of our transfers, including this one. But it reduced our wage budget by 2 grand, because he was on 2 grand a week, which is 100 grand a year, right? Like, that's not small potatoes to get rid of somebody like this. So he's moved on. Danny Baker's moved on as well. He was on 4,800 a week. So he's gone to KV Kortrijk in the Belgian Pro League. Yes, Pro League A. He's fine. He'd been an ADO Den Haag player his whole career, so I feel a little guilty. But just like, for that wages, I needed higher potential, right? Like, I could keep you around if this is your current ability and you're 22, but you've got higher potential, but he didn't. So we saved ourselves a big chunk of change. He left on a free, but it saves us the wage budget. Likewise, we had some youth prospects leave. Hugo Boltermans, who's apparently worth 220 grand, was on 800 a week, which isn't anything. I just thought, I mean, he's okay, but the potential wasn't there to justify, I thought, investing in an extended contract. I've also had problems loaning players. Like, nobody wants to loan our players, even at like for free, even for 0 wages and like no squad status selected. Like, you can keep him as a fringe player, an emergency backup or whatever, and no one is biting. So I don't know what's going on with that. Likewise, Lorenzo Van Cleef, a midfielder with 2 determination and 5 concentration. I'm not even going to zoom in to show you the stats. Left on a free, saved us a whopping 300 a week. Get in. Now, Aaron Myers went for 425 grand to Sparta, and it was quite nice because he's 33. Would have been nice to have, honestly, as kind of like an emergency backup left back, but his tackling is also pretty poor at a 10. I'd rather we've got a really decent looking youth prospect that we've called up to the senior team instead. But what was nice, he was one of the 2. He and Danny were the ones on loan last year for not even their full wages, and you're like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I'm gonna miss his professional attitude if he'd been better, right? 17 natural fitness, but he went for 425 grand, and he came to us and asked. He said, I think I've accomplished everything I could with the club. Could I go? And I was like, yes, please. We'll find you a club right now. Get out, son. We also sold Boy Kemper. for 135 grand to RKC. So RKC going on a little bit of a shopping spree since they got relegated, which is like, do you get a parachute payment going down from the Eredivisie? I don't think you do. But anyway, saved us 1,800 in wages. Again, not anything to sniff at, right? That's like, whatever, almost, let's call it 80 grand just to be simple. But we also got 135 grand for him. He was fine, but he only had like 2.5 or 3-star potential. So like, even if he maxed out his potential, he was never going to be that left back that we needed. And he's listed as a center back. So it was kind of like, we're just clearing out a little bit. And of course, my friends, since you were doing the math and go like, wait, you have like 4 million in transfers out. You haven't mentioned anything massive. Who's gone? I've sold Ravel Morrison to Willem II, I think is what I just saw in the comments as to how I'm supposed to say it, because you're supposed to say the two part. So if I say Willem II or Willem II, that's the team that I mean. And I don't mean Willem. Obviously, that's completely different. I knew that. But Ravel Morrison, I mean, again, I had comments about like, it was EPMD. Top priority for this offseason, rid yourself of the Ravel Morrison experience. He's done almost nothing for you and will probably continue to do nothing for his next club. I can't really disagree. And I feel bad because he's a real person and he's had kind of a sad experience in life. I mean, it's hard to say he's had a sad experience. He's lived all over Europe and gotten to play football. But like, from a meeting his potential standpoint, he gave us 27 starts and a sub, 1 goal, 5 assists, and 1 player of the match on a 6-8-1. Which would have been enough for me to consider keeping him around, except his physicals had started to drop off a little bit. Like, he wasn't improving. He's got poor determination overall. Like, 9 is not great. You could say it's below average if the average is 10 or 10.5, 1 to 20. Anyway, and I'd had so many like spicy is what I'm going to call it moments with him from like a team talk standpoint, or like his attitude, which again, I feel bad if that's like tied to reality and Football Manager has like taken that and put it in. Like, it's almost like he deserves a temperamental personality or something like that. So you feel kind of bad. He's $2,000 a week, which for his level was okay considering the wages we're now paying, but his value was at like 4 million. And I'm like, that, how often right now are we going to sell a player for 4 million euros? And so we did for 3.5, right? Like, and he was super mad and his agent was upset and whatever, but we've cashed in. And again, this goes back to, I think this is the kind of club we are, is I don't think we're good enough right now to go sign somebody for 1 million and keep them forever, right? Because a lot of the agents are coming in and demanding like a minimum release clause, which is like, none of them are high. None of them are like 20 million. They're like 4 and 5 million. And so I think we just have to live with that and say, you know, this is the kind of club we are. We're going to give you a chance, get you some first team minutes, help you rebuild your career, help you start your career if you've been a backup someplace, like some of the players that we brought in have, and give you a chance, and then you'll get some attention and you'll probably move on. And that's like how we'll kind of build up the club as we go. I don't love doing that, right? I'd much rather keep the players forever, but in this instance, we got a guy on a free and sold him for 3.5 million. Good deal. Last but not least, we have loaned out brothers, and I didn't realize they were brothers. They're brothers at our club, which is hilarious, and they're Israeli brothers, and we've loaned them to the same as Israeli club. It's not gone too well. A 635 here for Jonathan, but I didn't even notice until I was like, well, the last name's the same. Wait a minute, they're both Israeli. Wait a minute, and I went in here. Michael Mulder is his brother, who we've loaned out. It's not even for full wages. I just think that's kind of interesting. Michael was the one that we kind of had like as the emergency DM / central midfielder on defend last year. But I really think at 20 years old, he really needs minutes. And I'd like to see if he can develop, because I think he's got the potential, right? He's got 3 or 4 star potential, but he needed minutes. And so we've loaned them to this club, Hapoel Hadera Givat Olga Shalem Schwarz. Surely that was like 40% correct, and you should give me some credit for that. Surely, right? I want to say this was on regular starter minutes, but it doesn't show. It says skip. Anyway, we've loaned them out. Yeah, see you guys. All right, so some of those ins that I told you about, I told you we had, I think, 8 new players. You've seen some of them, but I want to show you, this is the summer window. This is officially where we're at with the team. So Stefano Vecchia, who's done okay in preseason, you know, he's settling, and we've promised that we're going to improve the coaching team. We're going to play him on a trequartista on the right side, unless we have an injury to Kishna, in which he'll play on the left side in the exact same role, and we'll bring in somebody else on the right. That's kind of where we're at. Welcome to the team, Stefano. You're making $9,000. There goes 2/3 of the wage budget we saved by getting rid of those 7 players all in one. Julian Carranza, 4.1K a week, scored a rifle of a shot against Ajax in the Dutch Super Cup, which I will show you now. What I love about this goal is Kishna has just hobbled off with like a twisted knee. You can see the orange dot there that popped up there. So we're down to 10. He's hobbled off. He's laying on the ground. Look at that. That was lovely. So somebody, I think last episode, or maybe the episode before that, said that they had Julian in there. Is it Julian or Julian? Julian? Carranza. I kind of like that. So that he turned out to be a really good player for him. I hope he does, but he's worth $3.1 million, and we got him on a free, and Inter Miami bought him previously for $5 million. So like, again, going back to that, bringing in somebody on a free who was available, signing him, using him for a little bit, moving him on. Somebody we won't be moving on because he's too old and already falling apart, and we've made him the captain, my friends, is Alejandro Bedoya, but he's got 16 determination, 15 teamwork, and leadership. He's the highest by far in both of those categories from the leadership and teamwork standpoint, so I kind of felt like I had to make him the captain, and I just love me some Alejandro Bedoya. I just love him. I just love him as a player. I think he got kind of a raw deal with the U.S. men's national team the last go around. He's a workhorse. He can play anywhere in midfield or further forward if you ask him to. I freaking love him. 15 work rate. Get in. He wants to play as a box-to-box midfielder, which is fine. We do have an optional contract extension available on him for a year. We'll have to see how those physicals hold up. I'm thinking right now, probably not. Leopold did sign his contract. Yay, 8.25. He's worth $3 million. He's an upgrade. He had an 8.3 in the Dutch Super Cup and got the man of the match. Goalkeeper man of the match. Made 9 saves. Whoa, doggy, let's go. Yes. Sorry, Luke Koopmans. All right, my friends. So we did buy Lewis Nielsen, who had purchased, I purchased and reloaned him back to Scotland in the Burnley save. I was looking for a ball-playing defender that didn't want starter minutes, but that could end up being good. And I think Lewis is it. So if anybody in Scotland happens to know Lewis Nielsen, I did tweet at him. I'd love to get him like on a video. Like, hey man, what are you thinking? You know, like, I don't know. I just think that would be neat. I think he's a gem. I think he's like, he could be one of those players that we see now, and in a couple of years is like, wow, look at Lewis Nielsen appearing on like the world stage. Right now, in reality, he's with Dundee United, but we signed him for 150 grand. I can't remember what the, maybe I'll show it here. Here. There's the add-on. So at most, it's going to cost us 180 grand. He can also play DM and midfield and right back in an absolute bind, which is, I mean, it's never bad to have versatility. And he played a 7.4 in the Dutch Cup. Again, I'm not trying to put all of our hopes on the Dutch Cup. I just think it's kind of funny that we beat Ajax. Next up, we've signed Ahmad, what's the J? Ahmad Nazi? Sorry if that's wrong. French goalkeeper, prospect for the future. We had him in on trial. We didn't have him fully scouted. He was like 3.5 to 4.5 potential ability. I was like, that sounds pretty good for a goalkeeper. Like, even if he turns out to be half decent, he'll be worth $1 million. Picked him up on a free 1.2K. Stick him down to the B team. We'll see in a couple years. But overall, I think a pretty good pickup. You know, balanced, not terrible. Sweeper keeper, not so much with the one first touch. But you know, besides that, we're paying 1.2 grand a week to take a punt on a player. I think it's fine. Next up, massive signing, center back, ball playing defender. I think it's Luis. Please correct me in the comments. 9.25, also more expensive than our goalkeeper. Cool. But he's 24, Spanish center back, coming to us from Chicago. Yes, the Chicago Fire, my friends, where prior to that, they paid $275 from Espanyol. He left on a free. He didn't want to sign a new contract. He only made 2 appearances for them last season. Both starts on a 7.3, which is kind of sad, really. Prior to that, only has 10 total appearances at the top level of any of the leagues, but that's okay because he's 24. You know, all around, I mean, you can take a look here at the coaching report. He's our best center back. So, you know, he's got the important player contract. He's going to play a lot because Gianni is going to start tailing off. He's already down to 2.5 stars. So Luis is here to pick up the slack. Johnny can kind of help cover right back and be that rotational option. We got to drop his squad status. We won't tell him just yet, but Johnny's also on 1.5 grand a week. Luis is on 9.25. He's going to play. Get 10. Last but not least, we have replaced Ravel Morrison with Akanet Panya, a Thai player already with 17 caps and 9 goals for his national team. Hello. 4-star across the board, current and potential ability. Wants to be an advanced playmaker in the middle. That's interesting. That's what we need. But can also, in a bind, spell Ricardo on the left or on the right, taking over for our trequartista. Or is it trequartista? There's a T there. R and a T. Trequartista. No, trequartista. The T. It's quarista? Trequartista. I think it's 3 syllables. Easy for me to say. Professional attitude at 21, my friends. Comes to us from Chiang Rai United, where he was a youth prospect for them. Got loaned out a couple times. Went and scored some goals, and then they called him up to the senior team. He got 26 starts, 3 goals, 6 assists on a 7.88 last season. My scouts were like, this guy looks pretty good. It took forever to scout him. We had him scouted to like 74% or something like that. I was like, he looks good. It's 200 grand. Let's try it. Diaz didn't work out, so like, let's go get this guy. And I think he could be pretty freaking good. 18 determination, my friends. Overall, I'm quite pleased. I'm not saying he's a world beater. He's on 5.25, right? And he wants star player minutes, but like, professional attitude, I think he's still got some room to improve. Although, does it say he can improve? Maybe not. Maybe we're getting the best of what he is right now. Who knows? But plays short, simple passes, dictates tempo. I improvement over Ravel, I think. And that's it, my friends. So what does that mean for tactics? I know some people have left comments that say, man, do something besides a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. Trying a trequartista that I can't even say is a bit of a push for me. So I'm trying to explore here a little bit, but also use our best players in their best spots. So we're going to stick with the 4-2-3-1 in games where we are expected to do pretty well. But we now have Carranza, Jonas Arveiler, and Novakovic from a striker standpoint. And 2 of them, Carranza and Jonas, are on regular starter minutes. How are we going to rotate them in? I thought it would be interesting if we had an injury crisis, or maybe it would make sense against certain clubs where maybe we needed to be slightly more defensive or more narrow, to play a 4-4-2 to get us 2 strikers, right? Like 4-4-2 diamond, I should say. So I also have fallen in love with the tiki-taka style. We are nowhere near that, to be clear, but could this be something that we don't use a lot, but we use it a little bit to work our way towards becoming a tiki-taka style? One, I think tiki-taka is entertaining for like you, the viewer, because like some of the highlights are just, they're just really, really good. And it gives us something to kind of work towards. So, and again, I'm not saying we do this all the time, especially because in comparison, our wingbacks aren't the best players on the team. So leaving them out on an island seems a bit risky, but yeah, I'm open to your suggestions and thoughts on this. I just thought it was kind of interesting because we do have players that can play DM. We have several good midfielders. We have several good attacking midfielders. So if our wingers were tired and needed a rest, and we wanted to get both, 2 of our 3 strikers in the mix from a match fitness and using them against clubs, I don't know. I just thought it'd be nice to try something a little bit different. And the other one was going to be the classic 4-3-3, right? So still keeping those wingers, using one of our strikers, but using one of our midfielders. So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now in terms of how we'll line up. Right now we don't have Luis because he's got a bit of a knock. He's got a twisted ankle, poor boy, for another 2 weeks. So Bayan and Gianni are going to hang out at the back like they have been. Seedorf, I think, is going to eventually become our starting right back. I'm a little worried that his potential's dropping, but his tackling is better. I think overall he's better than Evic at being a fullback. I mean, Van Eyck is definitely more of that like, complete wingback / winger, but he needs regular starter minutes. So we're going to have to sort that out a little bit to how that's going to work. Also, I did play Seedorf, at least as a sub, as a central midfielder on defend, which he's actually not half bad at. So he could be that Michael Mulder as well, to where he comes in at the end of games and gives us some game time, or takes 20 minutes, 15 minutes here and there in that holding mid role just to give him some game time. The big gap we have right now is left back, and here's why. I thought does this happen to you? Sometimes you think, I already took care of that, and it turns out you hadn't taken care of that. I extended the loan for Leif Davis. I could have sworn I did it till the end of the season, and then I looked and it was like, oh, this is about to expire. What? And so we've extended his contract, but it's only until the next transfer window. So between now and January, we need to find a left back, or convince Leeds to let him come back, or to buy him from Leeds, which is probably going to be a tad bit pricey. And so he's here. If we don't find anybody else, Shaq will take over a left back. But we're also bringing up, I mentioned him briefly, Miles Veldman, who I've promised that we would loan out last season, but no one wanted him. Like, literally, I was on 0% wages, no squad status, and, like, nobody came in. And I was like, well, what is happening? Like, this is weird. Why doesn't anybody want this guy? But he's in the senior squad now because I really like his potential ability. He's fairly determined, promising fullback media description, 17 determination. Again, his tackling, poor, right? Crossing, also poor. But if we throw him in at the end of games, or if we get like some fixture congestion because of some Europa League or something like that, dreaming, and we're playing a lower table team, do we give him a start every once in a while and boost his confidence a little bit and see if he can like develop into a good player for us? I think asking him to do that in the next 5 or 6 months is a lot, which is why I like that Shaq can play left back. And we've got other midfielders that could take Shaq's spot. So that's kind of the only major gap I see in the squad. I also called up Jamal Amofa, who's a B team player for us, primarily because he can play anywhere in the back line. Now, on the left side, he's right-footed only, so I don't love that. But just as we're going to set his squad status to, in case you didn't know you could do this, like he's available. If you can click it, which is the tricky thing, I'm going to make him available for the B team all the time. But if we get into some sort of an injury crisis, I've got somebody I could throw in on the back line anywhere, which is kind of nice. Obviously, Lewis Nielsen here can cover essentially from by and over. We did bring Dante Rigo back. Keith DeBoer still here. Attila Agirman is still here, developing, trying to give him some game minutes. Ratier is still here. And aside from that, Pascu and a bunch of trialists that we're still working through. Sammy Borard, I think, might go, but again, he's decent. He's a nice to kind of have around, but from a development standpoint, I go, mate, you're 25. Like, it's a little late for you to be like having massive increases in your capabilities, and nobody has wanted him. I tried to sell him for 700, and then I tried to sell him for 650. Nobody's come in. I tried to loan him out. Nobody's come in. So he may just kind of see his career out. Amar, that had the ripped, torn calf muscle, is back. He's another one that's all right as a right winger. He's got some potential. I'd really like to loan him out. Willem Twee, see, we're working on it. Are interested, but they didn't want to pay 1.6 million. So I'm kind of like, well, do we just keep him around? What do you think? What do we do with those two guys? And I called this guy up just so we could register him for the Europa League playoff, because we have to have 4 players that were trained by the club in the Netherlands, and we didn't have 4 in the first team. We had 3. So he comes up and then he goes right back after this game. So he doesn't feel like, sometimes people get upset when you bring him up and you drop him right back. He's got 2 determination. Oh dear. All right, my friends, last thing here. This is how results have gone. We went on a little tour of Spain and got absolutely trashed by not high-level clubs. I mean, Sporting, obviously, they're in La Liga. Fair. Okay, they just got promoted. But still, like, okay, that's fair. Albacete are a second division club and a bottom of the second division club, and they wrecked us 4-0. And then Coruña, Spanish 2 Pro A, which, yes, I know that second division B1, whatever that is. Yeah, yeah, it wasn't good. So we came back and played FC Den Bosch, which is a like a historic rival of ours. I love their logo. Hello. Little fire-breathing dragon action. As noted, we beat Ajax 1-0, and then we got invited by Como in Serie C to come do an away friendly for 16 grand, and we were like, sure, and Novakovic banged home a brace. So the next time you see us, my friends, and I am going to talk about YouTube memberships, so if you're still here, like, you're going to talk about that, I have not forgotten, but the next time you're going to see us is going to be, oh, apparently, we're going to play, it's been reduced down to Celtic or Austria Vienna, my friends. So we'll have to see which one of those we get. But that's going to be the next game. I'm going to play a couple games in the league, come back for, I think we'll just do 2 key highlight episodes going back to back with one of those clubs. And kind of see where that, because that drastically changes my recording schedule, right? Like if we all of a sudden we've got a bunch of group stage games somewhere, that changes what we do in terms of showing you league play and whatever. So I want to get to that. So, my friends, YouTube memberships. Oh, if you're not interested in YouTube memberships, just hit the like button. Thanks for watching. But I've had a couple of people ask me in the comments, hey, would you activate YouTube memberships? Because I get a free one with my YouTube Premiere, which may or may not end at the end of this month anyway. But it's like Patreon, okay? So for those of you that don't know, Patreon is a way for you to financially support the content creators that you love. It doesn't have to be gaming. It could be a musical artist or a writer or a DM for Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, and you throw $1 or $2, you pledge a certain amount towards them. That's something that's on Patreon's website. I have one. Link is in the description. Patreon.com/grayhair with an A, or yeah, gray with an A, Gray Hair Gaming. And that's my goal by this month is to get to 60 people supporting me financially, because that helps me take time away from my family and my lunch breaks during work hours and stuff like that to like try and get some stuff done. YouTube memberships is the same idea, except it goes through YouTube rather than Patreon. Okay. So I think with YouTube Premiere, kind of like with Amazon Twitch Prime or whatever they're calling it now, you get a free pledge. I don't know if YouTube Gaming is going to keep that up with Premiere. But for now, you can pledge up to $4.99, up to a $4.99 tier, because Patreon and YouTube memberships are set up in tiers where it's like the first tier on Patreon for me is $1 to $9.99, and the second tier is $10 to whatever you want to offer. Okay. YouTube, you have to set up 3 tiers. So I've got a 99-cent tier because it forced me to have a third tier. I've got a $4.99 tier because that's what it said with YouTube Premiere. That was the max you could get for free with your Premiere. So I've added a $4.99 tier and then a $9.99 tier, which is essentially the $10 tier. I'm going to treat YouTube memberships like I do patrons. Okay, so if you pledge at the $9.99/10 level, that's where I start using you in my episodes, in my experiments and stuff like that. Below that, you'll get a shout out on the channel. The $10/$9.99 ones also get a shout out during a video. But below that, you'll get a shout out and my incredible gratitude as well. None of that changes for sure, but I've opened it up that way. You can set like custom emojis. I don't know how to make emojis, so I went with like the standard emojis that, you can use if I do a live stream or something like that. If somebody like could walk me through how to create cool looking emojis, I'd be open to hearing about that. I just don't know how to do it. So essentially I'm opening this up because people have asked and because it's a new revenue stream for me. And then I'm going to treat it just like I do patrons. However, what I will say, and this is what I put on a post on Patreon, on my Patreon page to my current patrons, is Patreon takes about a 12% cut. Okay. YouTube takes a 30% cut. So if you have the option to choose, I'd obviously much prefer your pledged dollar goes further on Patreon than it does on YouTube memberships. However, if you get a free YouTube membership and you want to throw it my way, that's how you do it. So that's a kind of long rambling, explanation of what's going on, but I wanted to be clear because nothing is changing for my patrons. If you've already pledged, that's staying the same. I hope you understand that. YouTube memberships is just essentially I'm replicating what I have on Patreon with YouTube for those people that want to do it that way too. All right, my friends, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on the transfers and the clean out at the club at the staff level. What do you think about the selling of Ravel Morrison and some of the signings we brought in? And where do you think we finish this season? I'll show you what is it? The media the season preview, expects us in 10th on 100 to 1 odds. So last season, we were 150 to 1. That sounds like an upgrade. All right, my friends, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.